if you're on right now, I'm going to put you in the waiting room for just a little bit.
Well, I can't hear him.
If you're on right now, I'm going to put you in the waiting room for just a little bit as we let everybody else get in. So just sit tight for me. We'll start in just a few minutes.
Because I'm plugged into.
Hey, Kaki.
Oh, there we are.
Go. Oh, I am so sorry. Usually I send that a long way after the bio blurb. I have so apologize. I'm glad that it came through
No,
quickly.
it's totally fine. I was like, I'm going to be right on time at 11:45, just like he asked. And then I was like, oh my God.
He didn't do what he's supposed to do.
No,
Well, let's see. I got a text from my boss here.
you're
You're
good.
just on. And I also got. Oh, golly. It was 42 minutes ago. I didn't even see that. I also just got off a meeting with them and they're like, okay, we'll be right on. And I clicked over and I'm waiting for them to click over and they're not clicking over. I'm like, shoot, do I have the wrong meeting? Like, these things will always give me a heart palpitation until when I sign on, everybody's there that's supposed to be there.
I
That's
know. I'm the same way. It's like you're almost like over prepared to a fault. Like the anxiety is top level.
Always. Is it recording? Yes, we're recording. You've got yourself set up. I've got your bio blurb in front of you. You talk about survey. Survey on mute. When you have a moment after the meeting, go ahead and send Karen your PowerPoint if you're fine with it, and she'll make it into handouts and send it out because that's one of the common questions we get.
Yes, I will write that down to do when we get off.
Ask. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to wait for my team to get on.
I'm going to mute and get a refill of water and coffee.
Sure. I'm going to make you a co-host so you can share your screen too, because that's important. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Wonderful.
Slides look good.
Yeah, Kaki does a very nice looking slides. Very good designs. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Mm-hmm.
One of my professors in grad school had rallied against using any kind of designs in your slides and said it should always be black on white, with pictures as necessary, but only if necessary. And so they're the most boring slides ever. And I was getting ready for a presentation I was doing during grad school. And I was with Kim at the time, and I showed it to her, and she said, "That's so boring. Who wants to look at that? Why would you're supposed to make this creative?" I said, "It's supposed to be distracting, and this is professional. No one's gonna like it."
That's right.
And she was right.
I want people to pay attention to your slides.
Yes. But he was adamant that the templates in PowerPoint were just distracting, and people would get overwhelmed by the colors and things like that, and you shouldn't use designs. It's like, okay, that was not a lesson to learn. All cute. Also, we're going to look at some cute babies today. I got a feeling. I love looking at pictures of babies. That's always a happy day.
Well, Kaki, thank you for your willingness to present today. We really appreciate it. My name is Chris Dean. I'm the director of the COE.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm Kaki Reynolds. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Spotlight your video here. I don't know. So when we were emailing yesterday about the list, Kaki, I had emailed you back and said it'll be done in short order, and I'd emailed Keith Gray. And I
Oh,
looked, and I don't know if you realize this, but when you emailed me, you had also emailed Keith Gray.
I did not.
So I don't know who Keith Gray is, but he has some information about the COEs now and learning cafes.
Right.
But
Oh, he's like a physician at the medical center. He's in charge of something because I emailed him too when Karen first started. So he's gotten several of our emails.
You know how you see like how an email is constructed and you just guess like this is probably Karen's email.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay,
So I'm
great.
sorry.
That's her.
I'm sorry she didn't get you the list in time, but we have probably 80 people signed up and about
Yeah, no,
50
she got
people.
it to me
Okay, good.
yesterday. Yeah.
Oh. And Karen has not yet logged on. Karen's the one that if I had Karen presenting, she'd give me the anxiety attack because she logs on like 2 minutes before it starts. I'm just scanning. Oh goodness, there's a woman named Chris Cross. Or she goes by Christy apparently, but oh boy. Oh, Mel from ETCH is on. All right. So do you have Zoom fatigue yet, Kaki?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a really relationship-based person and I'm very expressive. And I just miss like being with people in person. And then even when we're in person, we have these masks. Like it's made our court programming really challenging, just engaging with people in an authentic way. But you know, we're doing the best that we can. And what are you gonna do?
Yeah. I bet.
So
I bet
are you guys working remotely or?
Quasi. I'm in the office on Mondays and Tuesdays. I think Karen's in on Wednesdays and Chris is there Thursdays and Fridays. So there's always somebody in the office, I think.
Yeah,
usually just one of us at a time.
that makes sense.
And it's interesting because there's only 3 of us. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting everything opening back up as well. Although I'm glad we have the ability to do Zoom
Yeah.
learning cafes. I'm being very selfish and petty here, but I like the snacks that we have.
Well, I'm gonna have to get one of those snacks. You're gonna have to pay me in snacks next.
Hey, next time we have in person, come on, you can have all the snacks. Absolutely, Kaki. Absolutely have all the snacks. There's Karen. Speaking of snacks.
Yeah. I'm getting hungry.
Well, tell you what, I'm finding as I do this, it's easier for me to keep people in the waiting room and just admit them all at once than try and do it every time they knock on the door. Right now, we've got about 30 people in the waiting room. They're all popping on. Oh, we lost somebody. Alas.
Erin, you might have a panicky message for me. I didn't have the Zoom link, so I was like, just 0, like somebody answer the phone.
You're on mute, Karen.
We just got off another Zoom and I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta get some lunch. I haven't even seen my dog. So I just pulled back up here and saw it. And I was like, click, 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 click. But I sent it to you.
Thank you.
I still have people trying to get on. So my pressure people. And
Well,
did you see Drew, that I sent out the
Yeah, I saw.
I got the wrong time, but
That's
I'm
all
only
right.
human.
Now, did you check to make sure it worked?
Well, I sent it to myself, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let everybody in since it's 12 noon, and we'll wait just a minute or two after that for the stragglers. Welcome everybody to our Safe Baby Court Learning Cafe. We're going to wait for some people that keep coming on in. We're going to give them just a few more minutes to join us for this fabulous presentation, and then we'll get things started.
Drew, will you say something about the survey already being sent out?
Yeah, I will. I've got on my to-do list to talk about. All right. Well, I'm sure some will continue to trickle in as we get things rolling here, but we do want to get things rolling. So welcome everybody to the Center of Excellence for Children in State Custody's Learning Cafe about safe baby courts today. I want to thank you all for coming in. Definitely appreciate you being here and taking some time out of your busy days to join us. A few things of housekeeping right now, or real quick, is first off, we're all on mute coming in. If you have a question to ask Ms. Reynolds as she's presenting, feel free to put it in the chat and I will moderate those and get those relayed to her. If it's something more of a conversation, of course, I will unmute you so that you and her can have a conversation and get some more information that way. If you're interested in obtaining the PowerPoint presentation, please send an email to Karen Gray. And she will, once we get that in, we'll get that to you in a handout form. Make sure you send her the email. Don't just put it in the chat that you want them. Send her an actual email so she has access to that. You may also take note that we have emailed you a survey for the Learning Cafe. Please wait to fill that out until after the Learning Cafe is done so that we can get your ideas on what went well, what didn't go well, what other future topics that you'd like to see. It really helps us better these and present topics that you find relevant to your current situation. Without further ado, I'd like to, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Kaki Reynolds. Kaki was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, and graduated from the University of Georgia in 2007. Kaki has worked in child welfare for over a decade and spent a majority of her career with youth villages, where she learned the importance of family preservation and the role of early intervention in helping families be successful. Kaki has been involved with Safe Baby Court since its early implementation in Knox County in January 2018. Initially, she was involved as a stakeholder and a service provider for Safe Baby cases. She started as the Knox County Safe Baby Court coordinator in October 2018 and has worked to grow the program and increase community awareness of Safe Baby Court since that time. Kaki is passionate about the mission of Safe Baby Court, and as a mother of two small children herself, she loves working to help families cultivate a life of recovery and hope. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you, Ms. Kaki Reynolds.
Thank you so much, Drew. And thank you to the Center of Excellence for giving me this opportunity to share about Safe Baby Court with you all. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here and hear about what it is that we're doing at juvenile court. First, I'll start off just by giving you guys a brief understanding of what Safe Baby Court is. You hear a lot that people say the opposite of addiction is community, and that's really something that we focus on helping our families develop. We work to help them develop a strong and healthy community that can help children thrive from infancy to adulthood. We're a specialized court system that works with children from birth to 3 years old that have been placed away from their families for one reason or another. And we work to connect families with resources and empower parents to advocate for themselves and flourish in the long term. The two main goals of Safe Baby Court are to reduce the time to permanency for children in this age group and to reduce the risk of future maltreatment. The Safe Baby Court approach is held by 0 to 3, which is a national resource center. And we work with this population because the number of infants and toddlers entering foster care in this age group nationally far exceeds children entering in any other age group from birth to 18. Further, science tells us that the brain's developing architecture during greatly impacted by trauma and maltreatment in this population. And to break that down a little bit, on the left here, you can see the abuse and neglect reports nationally and how that's broken down by age groups. So almost 30% of the number of reports of children of abuse and neglect are for children under 3. And then on the right, if you look at foster care entry rates, a quarter of the children in custody are also in this age group. Conventional wisdom would tell us that what happens to children in that early time frame isn't as impactful or meaningful as what happens in adolescence or later childhood. But what science has revealed in recent years is that the brain development from 0 to 3 is really the most critical in helping children get on the right track for future development and growth throughout their lives. So this image kind of tracks and looks at when the connections for language peak. Here you can see that language peaks around 8 months old. Looking at sensory pathways, we see that peak around the first year. Higher cognitive function peaks around age 3. So what we learn here is children in this age group are particularly sensitive to interactions and surroundings and relationships. So when you look at children in this age group being in foster care, already they're having traumatic situations that have happened to them and are higher risk for having further development and cognitive issues down the line. Safe Baby Courts in Tennessee were initially established with the support of AIM High Tennessee, the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, and Grundy and Davidson County. With legislation passed in 2018, those two courts fell under new funding with the Department of Children's Services, and there was a rollout of an additional 5 counties, which included Knox. With new legislation passed last year, the grants extended through 2025 and included 5 additional courts. So here's a comprehensive list currently of all of the Safe Baby Courts in Tennessee. And based on a call I had earlier this week, it sounds like they might be looking to expand even further. I think the vision for our state is eventually for this model to be how all courts handle this population in this young age group. As I mentioned at the start of this, the approach is held by 0 to 3, and there's some guiding principles and components that we'll talk through as we progress through this presentation. One thing that's really great about Safe Baby Court is there's flexibility in how that approach is implemented from county to county and area to area. So legislation in Tennessee requires the state requirements listed on the left-hand side, and then on the right hand, we can see how Knox County specifically has narrowed our focus with some additional criteria. So across the state, to be eligible for Safe Baby Court, there must be a child that's under 3 in the family unit. The parents have to volunteer to be a part of our court programming, which is a big one. And then the juvenile court obviously has to have jurisdiction over the child. In Knox County, we're only working with children that have been placed away from their biological parents. Those can be children placed in formal foster care or in relative placements with grandparents or friends, family. We're primarily working with families that are living in Knox County. That's something that we do have a little bit of flexibility with. As we'll talk more, a lot of what we're doing is putting services in place, making sure families have access to visitation. So we want to make sure that our children are within a reasonable distance to meet all of those service requirements and visitation expectations. We're not currently working with families where there's active domestic violence. And then we have to make sure that there's no conflict of interest with our Safe Baby Court magistrate. We were previously being heard by Magistrate Michael Fortune, and he has changed roles and is handling now some more delinquency matters. And so we've been assigned a new court magistrate. Her name's Angela Blevins, and she was previously a guardian ad litem. So that's something we have to make sure that she doesn't have a previous history with the families that are coming into our court programming. Kind of the nuts and bolts of what it is that Safe Baby Court does. As I mentioned, we're looking for voluntary participants. So cases initiate with a willing and motivated parent who's really committed to the hard work it's going to take to regain custody of their child. Once a parent consents to Safe Baby Court, they're met with a team of professionals to support them on their journey. And this team really varies from family to family. Every family has attorneys, we have guardian ad litems, we've got DCS involved. Beyond that, though, we're going to look at the need of each child, each parent, each caregiver, and make sure that we're tailoring the people that are coming to the table to meet that need. All of our children have TEIS in place. A majority of our families have substance use issues, so they may have therapists, IOP providers, case managers. We have all kinds of people that are coming to the table. So it used to be prior to COVID that, we'd have a room full of people that were sitting there ready to support and help parents in our monthly child and family team meetings. Now it feels like the Brady Bunch on steroids. We have our Zoom CFTMs and there's a bunch of bubbles and everybody's sitting there ready to talk about what's going well with the family, where are the struggles, and where can we all rally to make sure that everybody's needs are met. As I mentioned, we have monthly court hearings with Magistrate Blevins. We have random drug screens that are conducted by a multitude of people on the team. There are home visits by providers, the coordinator, our case manager. We try to provide our parents with increased opportunities for visitation. That's a really big deal in Safe Baby Court and looking at infant mental health. Typically, children that are involved in the foster care system have 4.3 hours of visits with their parents on a monthly basis. And so when you're looking at an infant or a little bitty one, what can happen in a month and only seeing that baby for 4 hours is really detrimental to the cultivating of that relationship. And so we focus a lot on how we can get creative with visitation. How can our parents be a part of the daily life of the baby? And so that's something we're constantly talking about in our child and family team meetings and our court hearings. How are we making sure that this baby and these parents have as much access to one another as is safe and possible in any given situation? Another thing that sets Safe Baby Court apart is obviously the emotional support, the tangible support that you're getting. we have a lot of access to resources. In our grant, we've got a specific line item for assistance to individuals. So we try to help our families kind of clear the path to permanency. I think when typically people come into the child welfare system, something bad has generally happened, and parents are given a list of things to do to rectify that situation. But along with all of those tasks, they have jobs and other responsibilities, and those things can be tough to balance. And so we work to really clear the path for our parents. If you need A&D treatment, what can we do? Do we need to help with some rent assistance? Can we provide gas cards for transportation? What are the things that we can do to support you, even financially, to make sure that you're finding foundation in your sobriety, your recovery, or your basic permanency plan? So those are kind of the nuts and bolts of Safe Baby Court. But behind our day-to-day work, these are really the principles and components that we're trying to stay focused on, and making sure that these things are shining through in the work that we do. We focus heavily on infant mental health, intergenerational trauma, family engagement, and team collaboration. So infant mental health, I imagine that this audience is somewhat familiar with this term. I think it's something that's getting a lot of recognition and more awareness in our community than in previous years. But a lot of times when we start talking about infant mental health in our child and family team meetings, our parents are like, what are you talking about? My baby's just a baby. They don't have mental health issues. And so one thing that we try to help our families understand is that infant mental health is really about infant wellness, emotional well-being, mental well-being, developing on an appropriate timeline, all of those things. So we understand that babies develop within the context of their relationships with caregivers. And through those serve and return interactions, those are the things that are developing those brain connections that we talked about at the start of this presentation. And so it's super important that the strength and quality of the relationships between the baby and the caregiver is sound and strong. And further, we want to make sure that the strength and quality of the relationship between the baby and the parent, the non-custodial parent, is also strong and nurtured and cultivated. And we know that that attachment, if it is firm in the beginning, is going to produce healthy mental health down the line. So one of the things that we look at a lot in Safe Baby Court are indicators that maybe infants have some mental health struggles or adaptations that we're witnessing through a baby's development or their behaviors that would lead us to believe they need some assistance in one way or another. So infant adaptations to trauma could include inconsolable crying, babies or toddlers that are coming to us from maybe more neglectful situations, maybe have learned that crying is not going to get their needs met. So we might have little ones that don't cry or don't communicate their needs. We may have toddlers with indiscriminate attachment. They're hugging strangers. They're not looking around for caregivers when they're exploring. We may find that children are regressing if they've had something traumatic happen to them in these early years. So when we talk about infant mental health, this is really the foundation of future development. And we want to make sure that we're helping our little ones form close and secure relationships with adults and peers, that we're helping them experience and manage a full range of emotions, and that we're helping them explore the environment and learn and do all of these things within the context of the family, community, and culture. So some of the ways that we focus on infant mental health in Safe Baby Court are to help those babies establish safety immediately. So with Knox County specifically, we do that by working with families where the baby is not with them right away. We want to make sure that the parents have the space that they need to take care of the things that have brought them to this place. We try to reach long-term placements quicker so relationships can stay stable. We support birth parents' health. We reduce multiple placements. This is a big one. Again, I think a lot of times for children that are in foster care, placement changes can happen really quickly for one reason or another. A foster parent may have a change in circumstances and baby needs to move. And those things can be a bit haphazard. You know, one day baby's living with foster mom A, and then all of a sudden the next day they're living with foster parent B. So we try to help our teams slow down and really be mindful in those times of transition as to how that infant mental health and how that baby is being kept at the center of those transitions. So as we're making those moves, even from foster families to birth families, what are we doing to make sure that that transition is going smoothly? What can we do to implement continuity between foster home and bio home? Similarly, we try to help the parents have a strong voice in child and family team meetings to help them co-parent with their foster family. Another thing that we have that's unique in Safe Baby Court is access to child parent psychotherapy. Again, when we first throw this term out there, I think people get a little bit uncomfortable. They're imagining, you know, babies on a couch talking to Dr. Freud, and it's like, what in the world is happening here? But child parent psychotherapy is a trauma-informed treatment suggested for children under 5 that have experienced some kind of traumatic event. In our situation, generally that is the removal from biological family, or intrautero substance exposure, neglect, abuse, those kinds of things. And CPP supports family strengths and relationship. The therapist is going to work in the beginning to get to know the child and the family. They spend time meeting with parents and caregivers to understand all of the needs and challenges that might be associated with a case. They recognize strengths, values, history, experiences. And then as time goes on, they start to address those needs. Typically, this is happening once a week. It's an additional opportunity for a parent to have some time with their child that focuses solely on attachment, relationship, helping the parent understand how trauma might impact development later on. And then lastly, as things are wrapping up, they celebrate the changes that have been made and how those changes have come into fruition. It's a really neat thing, I think, as watching CPP from start to finish with some of our children and our parents, looking at how to tell your family's story in the context of this experience that's happened. Obviously, with our parents that have had their children removed, there's a lot of shame associated with that. Generally, it's related to substance use issues, another place where there's a lot of just shame and guilt. And CPP therapists can help our parents find ways to tell the story of this time of separation in a way that's sensitive, that's trauma informed, and that supports both the family and the child in moving forward in a more positive direction. Are there any questions thus far? Okay.
Nothing's come through the chat.
Good deal. So moving into intergenerational trauma, again, I think for this audience, I'm sure you guys have a broad knowledge base of trauma and what trauma is and the effects of trauma on later experiences. So I'll just touch on some of this. I think sometimes people consider trauma as like one event. When we're talking about trauma, often it's something that's chronic, something that's happened repeatedly over time. When we're talking about intergenerational trauma specifically, we're working with a lot of parents that have been victims of trauma themselves. And I think that this captures it nicely. If you start in the childhood trauma section, a lot of times that's going to produce behavioral issues in childhood, leading possibly to adolescent victimization, depression, potential substance abuse, which can lead to increased risk for adult poverty, addiction, depression, domestic violence. And then these individuals have children, and the cycle kind of starts all over. A lot of the families that we're working with in Safe Baby Court are young parents that have grown up in the child welfare system themselves. They're parents that have been in juvenile court for one reason or another. And so, we have to keep that in mind and really be looking at our parents through the eye of any trauma that they're bringing to the table. I'm sure we're all familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. The number of ACEs, as those increase for individuals that we're working with, so does the risk for negative health outcomes. So the children that are coming to us have on average already experienced multiple ACEs before they've even entered into the world. And then they're separated from families. For our toddlers, a number of them are obviously placed in foster care. They've seen domestic violence. They have family members who are struggling with addiction, mental health issues. This is a really great infographic sharing about the population that we're working with in Safe Baby Court. So on the left, you have a graph reflecting the percentage of people in the general population that have 4 or more ACEs. So that's 13%. When you look at parents that are involved in child welfare, that number jumps up to 37%. And then when you look at just the people that are involved in child welfare whose children are under 3, that number skyrockets up to 63%. And so that's where we live in Safe Baby Court. It's safe to say that around 60% of the parents that we're working with have had 4 or more ACEs. And I think for me, I do this work all day, every day. I'm a parent. It can get very frustrating when you're working with individuals with substance use disorder, individuals with a lengthy history of trauma, to forget about where they're coming from. What's the journey that brought them to this place? A majority of these individuals didn't just wake up one day thinking, oh my gosh, today I think I'll, lose custody of my child. It's been a lifelong journey that's brought them here. And we see these adaptations in our parents. They have difficulty making decisions. They have increased avoidance. They might find themselves disconnecting. They have negative self-concept, difficulty trusting. And again, a lot of them have been raised in the system themselves. They're not strangers to juvenile court. And so we're asking them every month to come into a building that they've had probably traumatic experiences in. We're asking them to sit on a Zoom meeting with 15 bubbles, looking at them, staring at them, tell us about your strengths and struggles. And we expect them to do that with grace, humility, honesty, and that's hard. And so I think we have to remind ourselves in this work, whether it's in Safe Baby Court, child welfare, or just other, human services working with people, that a lot of times the behaviors, the frustrating interactions you might have with individuals is the result of what's brought them to this place and is not necessarily a choice that they're making. So we try to keep that in mind and try to hold one another accountable and remind each other as team members about trauma and remain trauma informed in the work that we're doing.
Kaki, on the previous slides, you had mentioned something about the general population, and the question came, what do you mean by general population? Knox County population?
No, this is a national slide. This is a slide from 0 to 3, so it's across the United States. A good question.
Thanks.
So moving into our last kind of components, this I feel like is like the love language of Safe Baby Court. It's the team collaboration, family engagement. This is kind of the warm and fuzzy stuff that I think really sets us apart. As we talk about team collaboration, everybody's working together in partnership and service of the child's learning, healthy development, and well-being. And as I've said before, we really try to keep the baby at the center of the team and the team's decision-making. With family engagement, we really want to develop authentic relationships with our parents. We want to help them, give them a voice and feel safe to tell us what's really going on. We want to be encouraging, positive, see their strengths. We want to have ongoing, intentional, and meaningful engagement from all team members with our parents. And again, we want to make sure that the parents have the ability to share their voice and that it's safe to do so. We look at Safe Baby Court really as the starting place of relationship-based child welfare. In the first, I would say, year of me doing this work, we talked a lot about co-parenting and how can we help support foster parents, caregivers in a co-parenting relationship with bio parents. And I was at a conference in August and it was brought up kind of a different idea of co-parenting that I really hadn't thought about before and I loved. Co-parenting is the mutual joint efforts of adult raising children for whom they share responsibility. And in dependency cases, a child's co-parents include caregivers and birth families, but also those systems partners, parents, foster parents, attorneys, caseworkers, judges. We are all brought to this table to help co-parent this child. And as time goes on in our Safe Baby Court, we want to transfer those co-parenting roles to the natural support system. So ideally, we're going to reunify. If that doesn't happen, is there a place, is there a space for a parent to stay involved in a child's life, even if they're not a primary caregiver? And so those are conversations that we're having throughout the life of our Safe Baby cases. Who are the co-parents in this child's relationship right now? Who are they projected to be as time goes on? And really, who is the village that we're building around this child to help them raise up into safe and contributing adults? So we've talked a lot about kind of safe support on the family level. And that's a huge part of what we're doing. We're working with, right now, 21 families trying to help those children reach permanency. Beyond that, though, Safe Baby Court has a larger mission. We're working to help our community adjust the practices and principles of how our child welfare system functions to better meet the needs of these small children. So we look at gaps in programming, struggles in the processes of how things are functioning in our child welfare system. And we try to inform one another, our providers, our DCS services, CPS, on maybe a better way of going about handling these cases. So ways that we do that, we do a lot of training. Today is an example of that. We meet regularly with the Department of Children's Services to look at what's happening in our cases and how might that be reflective of larger systemic struggles. So for example, we had a period I mentioned about foster child placements and moving those kids really fast in a way that felt haphazard and felt just disorganized. And so we've done a lot of work over the last year to slow down those transitions. And we hope that those are being generalized into the bigger child welfare system. Infant mental health is another conversation that we try to help spread the word about infant mental health into our community, into our child welfare system, and into our decision-making. So when I first came on board in this role, that was a term that people were uncomfortable with. But I was in a child and family team meeting last week and had a guardian ad litem say, how's this move going to impact this child's infant mental health? And I was like, about to just jump up and down, So, we try to help people understand that we don't have to just have business as usual. If you don't feel good about the way the system's running, how can we make changes and how can we be a part of that change down the line? And so we hold this idea that systems transformation can result in healthier families overall. Nationally, Safe Baby Court teams, children involved in this are reaching permanency 2 times faster than infants and toddler in the general foster care population. Almost 2/3 of children find permanent homes with member of their families, which is twice the number in typical child welfare. And families receive focused attention that recognizes protective factors and strengths. And we see this resilience as evident by high ACE scores, but more positive outcomes. In Knox County specifically, we've served almost 70 children in Safe Baby Court over the last 2 years. We've served 41 families and have a 56% reunification rate with biological parents and 36% reunification rate with relatives. Interestingly, for Safe Baby cases that are in foster care, not cases that are non-custodial relative placements, the reunification rate is 69%. And when you look at that same age group in Knox County in 2019 and 2020, that rate was only 29%. So we're seeing much higher reunification rates with biological family, especially for the children that are placed in foster care. As I mentioned earlier, our goal is permanency. And while we hope that that is going to be with biofamily, that is not always going to be the situation. We've had 2 Safe Baby Court adoptions thus far, and we have 3 more that are likely to be finalized in the next month or so, we hope in 2020. And one thing that we see in those cases of adoption is we have a higher rate of surrendering. So through the course of Safe Baby Court, through really supporting families with a lot of resources, services, conversations about relationship development, we're finding that our parents have more insight, have more awareness, and might realize sooner that they're not in a place to parent right now. And so I think that's a win. Even though reunification didn't happen, having parents make decisions that are in the best interest of their children is a beautiful thing. And because we focus so heavily on the co-parenting, a lot of our bio parents are able to stay involved in some capacity post-adoption. And then this is just a quote from one of our graduates. She said, "Safe Baby Court was on my side from day one. I never felt the cold shoulder from them. They always accepted me as a person who made mistakes and saw that I was working hard to try to fix those mistakes. They were always rooting for me." And so that's really what I kind of want to leave you guys with. It's tough work, but we've seen our community really step up. We've seen partnerships with local agencies, with local housing authorities, and things that we really just never dreamed would happen. People are coming to the table ready to help our families and help these children. So if you're interested in getting involved, our website, safebabycourt.com. We have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for on the website. We have a quarterly stakeholder meeting. Our next one will be in January. That information also comes out in our newsletter. And we really are trying to bring people together from all different walks of Knox County to see how we can partner. How can we help not just the people in Safe Baby Court, but how can we make an impact in the child welfare system in our community and in our state? And then there's my email. I'm very available. Email me anytime. If you have questions or thoughts or have a crazy outlandish idea, I'm always wanting to hear those.
There is a question that has just come through is what is the typical length of time that a family is involved with Safe Baby Court?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really specific to each family. We've had cases that have reunified as quickly as 6 months, which is pretty quick. And then we've had some families that have needed a lot more support. I think the longest case we had was around 18 or 19 months. And we're glad to say, as it stands, all of our families, all of our kids that have reunified are still with those individuals now. We have one case where there's probably going to be a change of custody, but we haven't seen any new instances of abuse or neglect. So that maltreatment rate is still quite low. But the length of time just kind of depends on the family need.
Wonderful. And you have some accolades from, I think, Carolyn Milford there about your awesome reunification rates. And I have to agree, those are very awesome reunification rates.
Other questions?
We'll give people just a minute to type anything out there. It's a
I
little bit
see
slower
some of
when you're
our
typing.
partners out there. I don't know if you guys, any of you all want to share about your experience, but I do see some familiar faces. Thank you guys for coming.
Another question just popped up. What has surprised you the most when working with this population?
Ooh, that's hard. You know, I think that I wouldn't say this is the most surprising, but I think I'm reminded of it the most frequently. I think it's easy to look at individuals that have lost custody of their children and judge maybe a little bit and have a little bit of a bias. But I am continually just overwhelmed and humbled by the amount of love that these parents have for their children. A lot of them recognize they've made mistakes that have led them to this place, but it's not for lack of love. And I think we see that resilience shine through a lot as time goes on. And even the parents that have surrendered, they're doing that from a place of love. It's really amazing to watch and to watch the growth that people have the capacity to change.
There's half a question that came in. So we'll wait for that person to retype it. In the meantime, there's a question from a person. I'm a foster parent and currently have one foster child and getting an infant. Do you help the foster families be able to work towards adoption?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily, I mean, that's always a possibility. It's always going to be a permanency option. We try to have dual planning. So for babies that are coming in, especially with substance use struggles, adoption is likely going to be on our permanency plan. But we really want to make sure that our parents have every opportunity to get on the right track before adoption is really pursued.
All right, we have a couple of questions flooding in here, so we'll keep these going. The next question is, how do you follow up on the family success, and how long do you check on the family?
Yeah, so we log information into a database that includes TFAX ID information. And so as subsequent CPS reports are being made or things like that, there is, I think it's through Vanderbilt, they're analyzing to see if there's any new reports of abuse or neglect on families that have closed out from Safe Baby Court. Because of the relationships naturally that we build, I stay in contact a lot with the families that we've served. For example, with the holidays coming up, you know, we're reaching out to everybody and providing food boxes and holiday support for gifts. So while we don't necessarily have a formal follow-up process with our families, we naturally keep in contact with them. And should people fall on hard times or need help finding access to services, frequently they'll reach out to me for additional referrals and things like that.
Wonderful. And another question is, what is the referral and enrollment process? How do families get to Safe Baby Court?
It's a great question. So typically our referrals are coming from Child Protective Services or the Department of Children's Services. Once they file for a removal, they've done their investigation and decide baby needs to be placed somewhere else. They file that with the court and it's flagged to my attention. So I live at court basically. So then I follow up with the parents at their preliminary hearing, talk to them about Safe Baby Court. If they meet criteria and they are interested and motivated, then we go through paperwork right there, start the process, and go from there. We can take referrals, and we have taken referrals from agencies that are familiar with Safe Baby Court. Sometimes Susanna's House will give me a call, or Helen Ross McNabb saying, you know, this mom is about to give birth. We don't know what's going to happen to the baby. Can they come to you if baby is removed? So again, if you have an idea on a family that would be appropriate, always reach out, call me, email me. I'm happy to look into those cases.
Wonderful. And another question, do you have any networking interaction with other counties?
Yes. So we have support from 0 to 3. So I have a weekly call nationally with a lot of different coordinators, both from Tennessee and across the country. We have a statewide leadership team that includes the Department of Children's Services, the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and the Administrative Office of the Courts. And so we kind of all come together on a regular basis to talk about, any new processes that are rolling out in Tennessee. And then as coordinators, it's kind of a weird role. And so, we've got group texts and try to reach out to one another as we stumble upon kind of unique situations. So yeah, we do. If you work in a county where there is a safe baby court and you need direction as to who your point of contact would be, I can get that to you.
Wonderful. Another question is, who sits on the baby court team?
Anyone can sit on the court team. So for our child and family teams, the people that are on those teams are the people that are involved for some reason or another. So you're a service provider, a support for a family. For our stakeholder team, the more the merrier. We want anybody that's interested to come to the table and help us, move forward in this initiative.
Great. And another question, they're just rolling in and keep them coming, everyone. I noticed, another question says, I noticed that a lot of recovering addicts are using Suboxone treatment or methadone treatment. Are parents able to regain custody while in these programs, or do they need to be completely drug-free and out of treatment before they can regain custody?
That's a good question. So again, I hate this answer, but it kind of depends. Medication-assisted treatment is, I think the court's perspective on medication-assisted treatment varies from magistrate to magistrate. And I think we look at those situations on a case-by-case basis. So if we have an individual, let's say that their drug of choice has been Suboxone, the way that they're getting medication-assisted treatment is going to be looked at a little bit differently than if someone comes straight off an opiate and goes into that program. We do try to support titration plans where possible. We try to work really closely with those MAT providers to get their perspectives and their evidence of progress and make sure that we feel like the parent is not drug seeking and is truly making therapeutic progress in whatever treatment it is that they're receiving. Does that make sense?
I will allow her to follow up in chat. If not, we'll unmute. I'm going to go to the next question. Is safe baby court the same in every county? And if not, what are the guidelines that each county must follow?
So going back to that slide in the beginning, all of our Tennessee safe baby courts have to have children under 3 in the family unit. The parents have to volunteer to be a part of it. And then the court has to have local jurisdiction. Beyond that, each court can come up with additional criteria. So for example, Rutherford County, they only do non-custodial cases. They're not working with children in foster care at all. Each county kind of develops their processes and their programming to the best way to meet the needs of their community. So we all kind of work under this safe baby court framework and then tailor exactly what we're doing to the communities that we're serving.
All right. And those are all the questions that have come through the chat. If there's any other questions, I'll give you one just came through. When you say parents must volunteer, I assume you mean biological parents?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna give you, anybody else has a second to or needs a second to type another question, that's fine. In the meantime, I'm going to say thank you all for coming to our Learning Cafe today. It's been wonderful to have you all, and thank you again, Kaki, for coming on and talking to us about safe baby courts. It's been a real honor and pleasure to have you. And again, for participants, there is an email in your box with a survey link. Please fill that out after the completion. After the completion of the survey, you'll get an automatically emailed a certificate for your arrival, for your participation today. If there are several of you in one room, email Miss Karen Gray. Her email is in the chat, and we'll make sure you get your appropriate certificates. And especially if you're with DCS, you need those. Let us know. Did I answer? Oh, we missed one question. Goodness gracious. Safe Baby Court sounds like it is heavily litigation related, and I know that you are, but wondered why you ended up on this name, as it is much more family friendly and therapeutic than it sounds.
I don't think I understand the question.
Safe Baby Court sounds like it is heavily litigation related, and I know that you are, but wondered why you ended up on this name, as it is much more family friendly and therapeutic than it sounds.
So I didn't choose the name. I don't think I have an answer to that question. Safe Baby Court is just kind of what 0 to 3 calls it. So we just kind of went with it, I guess.
Gotcha. All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for the questions. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Our next Learning Cafe will be in January, where Giovanni Billings will be presenting on infant mental health as well. So we'll have a nice little segue here into the next set. We'll send those invitations out. You all have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll see you after the holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kaki.
Thank you so much, Kaki.